The year was 1562. Japan was a land torn by war, where rival clans fought for supremacy and glory. In the midst of this turmoil, a young lord named Tokugawa Ieyasu had a vision of a united and peaceful nation. But his dream was in peril, for his daughters had been taken hostage by the enemy Imagawa clan. They were locked away in the impregnable fortress of Kaminogo Castle, guarded by fierce samurai and cunning traps. Ieyasu was filled with despair. His heart ached with loss, his world painted in shades of grief. But in the darkest corner of his despair, a spark remained from the ashes. A name on his lips, a whispered prayer, Hattori Hanzo. A storm that would turn the tide, the legendary leader of the Iga ninjas. Ieyasu knew that only Hanzo could help him rescue his family and defeat the Imagawa. He wrote a letter to Hanzo, pleading for his assistance. He gave the letter to one of his loyal soldiers and told him to deliver it to Hanzo, who was living in a cave in the mountains of Iga. Ninja Hattori Hanzo was a master of stealth and strategy, renowned for his feats of espionage and assassination. He pledged his loyalty to Ieyasu, seeing in him a worthy leader and a potential savior of Japan. He vowed to rescue the daughters, not only to free them from captivity, but also to strike a blow to the Imagawa's morale and prestige. Young Hanzo decided to undertake the most daring and dangerous mission of his life. He gathered his elite team of ninjas, each one skilled in a different art of war. They prepared for the most daring mission of their lives. Before launching their attack, Hanzo and his ninjas had to gather as much information as possible about the enemy's defenses and whereabouts. They disguised themselves as monks, begging for alms. They traveled across the Imagawa lands, observing the terrain, the roads, the bridges, and the checkpoints. They also listened to the rumors and gossip of the common folk, learning about the mood and morale of the Imagawa clan. They arrived at the castle town, where they mingled with the crowds and visited the temples and shrines. They pretended to be devout pilgrims, but in reality they were scouting the castle's layout. They also spotted the princess's chambers, which were heavily guarded and isolated from the rest of the castle. They note Hanzo and his ninjas memorized every detail and reported back to their camp, where they devised a plan based on their findings. They decided to strike on the night of the full moon, when the Imagawa lords and generals would be drunk and distracted by a lavish banquet. They also prepared some diversions and traps to confuse and delay the enemy's response. They knew that their chances of success were slim, but they were willing to risk their lives for their lord and their honor. On a night, they prepared their horses and moved to the castle secretly from the forest. They had been planning this raid for days, ever since they learned of the princess's captivity. They wore black cloaks and masks and carried only the essential weapons. They knew they had to be quick and silent, or else they would face the wrath of the Imagawa army. They reached the foot of the castle walls and saw the sentries patrolling the ramparts. They waited for the right moment and then threw their grappling hooks over the edge. They climbed the sheer cliffs, avoiding the watchful eyes of the guards. They moved like shadows, blending in with the darkness. They reached the inner courtyard, where they split into two groups. One group headed for the princess's chambers, while the other group infiltrated the main hall, where the Imagawa lords and generals were celebrating their victory. Hanzo led the first group of ninjas, moving swiftly and silently through the dark corridors of the castle. He'd studied its layout and secrets carefully, knowing every hidden passage and secret door. He avoided the patrols of guards and the deadly traps that were set by the Imagawa clan. He used his blowgun to shoot poison darts at the guards, who were too far or too alert to be killed by his knife. He reached the princess's quarters, where he encountered his final challenge: 2 samurai warriors, armed with swords and spears, guarding the entrance. They were the best fighters of the Imagawa clan. They drew their weapons and charged at him, hoping to stop him before he could rescue the princesses. Hanzo had no time to waste, as the sun was about to rise and he had to complete his mission before the enemy reinforcements arrived. He faced the 2 samurai with his long spear, which he wielded with skill and precision. He parried their attacks and countered with his own, using his ninja movements and techniques to gain the upper hand. He stabbed one of the samurai in the chest, making him fall to the ground. He then threw his spear at the other samurai, piercing his throat. He quickly grabbed the keys from their belts and opened the door to the princess's chamber. He found them tied and gagged, but unharmed. He freed them and escorted them to the window, where some of his men were waiting with ropes and grappling hooks. Hanzo told his men to take the princesses and wait for me at rendezvous point. Then Hanzo swiftly moved towards the second group of ninjas who had infiltrated the other side of the castle using their stealthy techniques. They had reached the chamber of the Imagawa clan's leader, who was sleeping. Hanzo silently approached him and tied him up with ropes. He lifted him over his shoulder and signaled to his comrades. They quickly made their way to the rendezvous point, where the first group of ninjas was waiting for them with the daughters of Tokugawa, whom they had rescued. They mounted the Imagawa clan's leader on one of his own horses and took him with them. They then made their escape, using the same route they came in. They rode as fast as they could to the Tokugawa clan's territory before the Imagawa clan's enemy reinforcements could catch up with them. As they reached their home, Ieyasu rushed to embrace his daughters, who had tears of joy in their eyes. They hugged him back, relieved and happy to see him alive. Ieyasu thanked Hanzo profusely, bowing his head in respect. Hanzo feeling honored and satisfied, he had fulfilled his duty as a ninja and as a friend. The news of the rescue spread like wildfire across Japan, shocking the Imagawa and inspiring the Tokugawa. Hanzo's deed was hailed as a masterpiece of ninja art, earning him the nickname of Devil Hanzo. His action not only saved the Tokugawa daughters, but also changed the course of the war. Ieyasu, grateful and proud, saw a new hope for his vision of unifying Japan. He praised Hanzo for his loyalty and courage and vowed to make him his right-hand man.